2021 at 6 p.m. Colleen, please note that all board members, I believe, are present. Sherry, are you on?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All board members are present, and if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
To the flag
and
of the United States of America and to
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I do not see any communications recognitions on the agenda. Dr. Lee, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Does anybody requested to speak tonight during public comments?
No, sir.
All right. We can move on to administrative reports, our superintendent report.
Yes, from the principal's office, first semester achievement. Despite many challenges of hybrid and remote learning, our students and teachers have worked well together. Curriculum instruction planning has shifted to focus on key elements of lessons, standards, and activities were modified for different learning modalities that we've been in throughout the semester. In that, I provided a chart as well as Dr. Zwemke of a grade breakdown. And as a result, our administrative team, counselors, and department chairs are in the process of credit recovery plans, including the use of resources, labs, interventionists, and academies. We're also investigating the role of summer school and options to expand offerings with additional student support. Further, we continue to work together with stakeholders to continue to support our students. Our teaching staff has done remarkable work supporting our students. Over the next 4 weeks, counselors will be meeting individually via Google Meet with students to complete course selections for the 21-22 school year. These meetings are taking place through the student social studies and English classes. All course selections for 21-22 school year will be completed by Friday, February 26th. Prior to course selection, our school counselors, department chairs, and teachers work together to create the course selection slide deck presentation to share with our students and families. This presentation is helpful as students decide what courses they would like to take next year. From Curriculum Instruction Department, the instruction team will meet January 26th to discuss the transition back to hybrid learning, second semester finals, and resource expectations for teachers and students. Wes Anderson's continued to support teachers during their Google Fundamentals Level 1 modules and has coordinated technology sessions for teachers to attend during the January Institute. At this time, Wes will also work with Mr. Kelly to provide support to teachers who wish to take that Google certification exam. Our professional learning cohort met to discuss an upcoming professional learning opportunity that will begin this semester. Teachers will read the book Powerful Teaching and engage in meaningful discussion about instruction during remote as well as hybrid learning. And our dual credit placement testing, ALEX test and AccuPlacer, was administered virtually this year. Thank you to JJC Testing Services for their flexibility in helping to ensure that our students were able to take placement tests required for specific dual credit courses. In the finance department, under capital improvements, Building and Grounds Director Jason Piper and Mr. Troy met with representatives from our performance contractor ESG to review continued capital improvements, including health, life, and safety issues. They walked the entire central campus and discussed various potential projects. ESG will be putting together a plan for improvements over the summer that will be presented to the board in either the March or April timeframe. And then digital radios. As we look to improve our communication between campuses, we are investigating utilizing digital two-way radios and a new antenna system instead of our current analog system. This will allow us to communicate between campuses via radio in the event of an emergency. Mr. Kelly and staff are meeting with various suppliers to spec a system for our needs. We anticipate having a proposal for the board in the February-March timeframe. From the Community Relations Department, 2025 Incoming Freshman Night video presentation. Mr. Edwards created the class of 2025 Incoming Freshman Night video. The pre-recorded video is released on Tuesday, January 12th on the mchs.net Class of 2025 page, YouTube, and other social media channels. The video included messages from Dr. Zwemke, our assistant principal, freshman counselors, athletic director, activities director, director of curriculum, and director of student services. Within the first 24 hours, the video had a total reach of 1,900. Episode 16 of the Nook 111 podcast featured John Calder, who is our Career and Technical Education Department Chair. The episode was released on December 16th. Mr. Calder talked about his career path to MCHS, the years he spent opening restaurants, all of the wonderful opportunities the CTE department has for our students as well. And the Nook 111 live stream session, Facebook Live, was hosted with myself and Dr. Zwemke. The discussion centered around holiday memories, 2020 coming to an end, starting 2021 on a high note, and more. That was posted on the district Facebook page and YouTube channel, and the total participants reached of that one was 1,600 people.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Let's see here. That covers all. Does anyone have any individual questions for Dr. Lee or anyone else regarding the administrative reports of the superintendent, principal, assistant superintendent of business, director of curriculum instruction, or the community relations director? Okay, if we have no questions, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenchco,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Motion carries. Moving on to committee reports. On Wednesday, January 13th, we had a few committee reports. We had buildings and grounds, finance, personnel, and policy. We'll start with building and grounds. Mrs. Rudiger.
I'm going to refer that to Mr. Troy.
Sure. We had a small meeting on that. One item was the inspection report by the ROE that determined that all our buildings were in compliance. And so we were happy to report that back to the Board of Education.
Any questions for Mr. Troy on the buildings and grounds? Okay, finance, Mrs. Cry.
Yes, so the finance report tonight, revenues for the month of December are $964,361. Expenses for the month of December are $3,382,864. Year-to-date revenues are $29,921,254, and year-to-date expenses are $31,049,226. Revenues and expenses are on track with the budget, and in December 2020, the levy was filed with all three counties, and tonight we are instructing the administration to begin preparing the tentative budget for the 2021-22 school year.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Cry or Mr. Troy regarding the finance? Okay, personnel. We did have a personnel meeting that was in executive session. It will continue this evening in executive session. So moving on, we have policy. Mrs. Rechko.
Tonight we have the second reading of Press Plus PAC 106 and policies affected by CBAs. And is it an updated on the policy 2:260, the grievance task force policy? Did I get that right?
Yes, we've got a response that we is up for consideration and action on tonight. Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Rechko. Any questions on policy? Okay, moving on to discussion topics. Let's start with return to learn. Dr.
Yes,
Lee,
yes,
you kick it.
yes. We obviously did not have school on Monday, so we had students back in the building yesterday and as well as today. And then tomorrow will be the second cohort returning as well. And certainly after getting back in the swing of things, it's been nice. And we have met and we've discussed a lot of our different options that we have as we move through this. And just to speak a little bit to that this evening is Dr. Zemke.
Good evening, everybody. Like Dr. Lee has said, good news having our students back in our building. Our staff have done a remarkable job getting them back in, and we're excited to see the second half tomorrow and Friday. In the return to learn, we also have good news about return to play. Been working with our activities director, Hillary Holden, and our athletic director, Bob Tyrrell. We'll have madrigals and music beginning this week, dance and cheer and bowling and basketball this week. We'll have open gyms, really great opportunities for kids starting back up again. So they've just started communicating that information out through their coaches, through all the social medias, and through Brent Edwards as well too. As Dr. Lee mentioned, we had our group start. Our numbers really right now, hybrid, with 579 kids not responding yet, is 60% hybrid right now and 39% remote. Our attendance secretaries and our deans have been very busy confirming these students' instructional plans. We continue to be proud that we can offer 2 choices of hybrid or remote learning per ISB. But what I want to talk about a little bit tonight is that data does present us with an opportunity to look at a 4-day-a-week instructional program for those hybrid students. We could be aggressive with the plan, certainly not reckless with the plan. We obviously are committed to the ISB guidance, in particular social distancing and class size. We have a lot of work to do in the next couple weeks, working with our instructional team, department chairs, teachers, our association. And the main issue that we're trying to solve is when we look at all of the courses that we offer at Minooka Community High School, we have about 1,300 sections. Every class is a section. And what we have to really be cognizant of is a class size limit of 15 is what we've worked with throughout the course of the year. So at South Campus, we have 164 classes that are above that 15 mark. At Central Campus, we have 53 classes that are above that 15 mark. So the reason why it's so different between Central and South comes into graduation requirements, our GAVC students that leave, and then seniors' schedules allow for some more flexibility. So what we're trying to think about being able to do is look at those 53 sections, understand how many students are above that 15 mark, and then try to work to see how we can support students. So if students 16, 17, and 18 come on that 4-day-a-week plan, again, we're talking about that 60%. If we're looking at those students, where would they go? How many students are there? How many kids per hour would need? Essentially, we've all traveled before and have all gone to an airport. Planes get oversold. So essentially, if a class is oversold and they're above that 15, where would those 2 or 3 kids go for a history class? Where would those 2 or 3 kids go for the Spanish class? So we have to look at space. We have to look at supervision. But we're doing that work this week and next to try to figure out how to get that group of students, again, that 60% who has chosen hybrid of the kids at Central, how could we get them to up to 4 days per week? Certainly some possible issues and current cases that we're working with. Joe, can you jump in here and just kind of go through what some of the issues may be, and then we can maybe talk a little bit back and forth.
Hey, Joe, Joe, before you start, Brian, just to clarify, the 15 student class size is basically due to social distancing requirements. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the 6 feet get us the number of 15, correct?
That's what I need. Okay. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Just to talk a little numbers to start with, for the first, for this week, they look really good as far as quarantines. We have a total of 42 students on quarantine right now, 3 positive cases. As far as staff, we have 11 staff on quarantine. 2 of those staff members are for transportation. And then another 5 of those on quarantine as far as staff are from one certain special ed program. So outside of that, we have 2 teachers that are on quarantine. And we do have 3 positive cases of our staff. So this is probably the best our numbers have looked as far as quarantine and positive cases. That's definitely good news. And just to reiterate what Brian said, some of the challenges of, following the guidelines and protocols as far as class space and another thing, transportation, looking at transportation and how many students we can get on a bus, how many students are coming to school. But this is definitely the best place we've been in for a while, at least this week. So that's positive news. That's good. Anyone have any questions as far as guidelines or protocols or where we're at with things?
What would that look like 4 days a week?
Well, that's the question. 4 days a week, we have to look at the sections, the number of students in each class, and those leftover pieces or students that overflow into the class, and find spaces for those students, find a rotation for students so it's not the same students out every day, and what that can look like. Obviously, with these sections, Central is going to be a lot easier to do than South, just because of the number of sections that we're dealing with. So we feel pretty good of definitely looking at first possibly Central and our seniors and getting them back in 4 days a week. Brian, I think that's kind of some of the things we definitely discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, theoretically, a junior or senior that has 4 in-person classes during the day, maybe it happens on Monday. We look at an alpha slice within an alpha slice and say, okay, these kids today, if your class is over 15, you 3 are going to go to the library, but that won't happen to you on Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. And then the next group, the next day, a couple of you are going to have to go to the library or to the ARC or to a commons area. And again, it will come down to, do we have enough space and do we have enough supervision? And the other thing too is we can't necessarily give away the space that we've already allocated for when we do have a positive case or a quarantine concern. We have to move that classroom to those big spaces. So it's a big puzzle when we look at it, but it's a solvable puzzle that, as this week ends and we really have a better sense of who's here. Again, the parents have done a nice job getting a survey done. We do have those outstanding 579 families. We'll know who everybody really is by the end of this week. Then we'll know what we're really dealing with, and we can get people around the table, work with our department chairs, and then the other factor is, if I have a situation where I have 19 in a class and 14 in another, perhaps one of those kids out of the 19 can join the class of 15 on a permanent basis. As the teams and the teachers are pretty much teaching the same thing. So it's promising. I think we're in the best shape we're in. We're in the shape to talk about 4 days a week quicker than we anticipated. When we look at the horizon of getting the vaccine out, this is exciting news. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but I want to make sure that I'm transparent in the work that we're going to be engaged in moving forward.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. on the return to learn plan? Ms. Saros, Wendy, did you come back on? I don't see you listed, and I want to make sure that you just listed as board member.
I'm here. I lost it, but I came back.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. So let's see here. That's the return learner term. No questions there. We'll move on to policy. 2:260 grievance.
Yes, in your board packets, and there is two items with regard to this. One is the actual complaint and the complaint from the report from Dr. Grizetich, who is our complaint manager, who was assigned to this complaint under board policy, Board of Education policy 2:260, and a draft response that we put in the Board of Education packet as well. There is a typo in the response, I noticed. So in the second paragraph in the response, it would be as an initial matter and not manner. We address your standing to bring a grievance under board policy. So we would change that prior to Mr. Brozovic signing. But that is up for approval tonight as a response. So if anybody has any questions or concerns or would like to discuss that further or comments, we can certainly entertain them.
So this complaint was because we used the word Indian and other Native American imagery. So this is in regards to our calling ourselves the Indians and our logo right now. That does not violate any the stated statutes that's out there, does it not?
Mr. Troy, do you want to speak to that?
No, that does not violate any statutes, Mike.
Okay, so then this is, we're basically doing a statement the facts that we didn't violate any stated statutes and whatnot, as far as that goes. And then we next go into the, does anybody have any questions on the Indian and imagery piece of this? Okay. So what's next here is the, we violated his rights under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. What is this about now?
Well, there's two bases in the response. One is that in order to grieve the Board of Education under the policy that the board has approved in 2:60, you have to have standing, which means you have to be either a student, a parent, a guardian, an employee, or a community member. So as an initial matter to bring a grievance against the board, Mr. Trujillo is none of those, so he doesn't have standing to bring a complaint against the board. Next, we go into, okay, if he did have standing, without getting into whether one believes that the term Indian or anything is racist, he would have to say that this was intentionally singling him out for disparate treatment as opposed to somebody else. And he's provided no evidence that he was disparately treated because of his race as compared to somebody else not of the Indian race. So for those two reasons, we dismissed the complaint. The board dismisses this complaint. Really, there's no need to even get into the merits of whether the term is racist or not. So that's how it was written.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this? Okay. That's up for action tonight to approve that as it is. Do we need to do that, gentlemen?
Yes, I would suggest that the board approve the letter to be sent back to Mr. Trujillo.
Next week, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Next, we're moving on to 9C, Educational Foundation Update.
Yes, the foundation met last night. Unfortunately, we've had to move our Christmas in July event now to December 3rd, and that has been confirmed with Chapin's. So that will be moved. So please mark your calendars. That will be our annual ugly Christmas sweater event. We would like to thank again our recent grant recipients who posed for publicity photos with myself and a large check last Friday. It's Mr. Groark, Ms. Meadows, Mrs. Kempner, Mrs. Kump, Mrs. Wick, and Mr. Williams. And just remind our staff that our foundation is always looking forward to receiving grant applications and reviewing those. So, and our next meeting will be here in a couple of months.
Very good. Any questions for Dr. Lee regarding the foundation? Strategic plan?
Yes, this is as noted last month. Our goal leaders have provided their fall update, and we will begin meeting as we have a goal leader meeting with myself scheduled towards the end of next month. So nothing really new between December and now as we celebrated the holidays and then just getting back into the swing of things.
Okay. Any questions about the strategic plan? All right, we're moving right along. Policy review.
Policy review is pretty light this month on our annual as we go through each month with different sections. We did cover 350 administrative personnel other than the superintendent and their qualifications, as well as evaluation, which, as you know, we're currently in our administrative evaluation period, and compensation and benefits comes up a little bit later in the spring. And then school accountability, quality assurance, our application for recognition is current, although that no longer needs to be submitted.
Any questions for Dr. Lee regarding policy? School calendar.
Yes, we do have our 2021-2022 school calendar up for first reading this evening. Very similar to what we currently have in place this year. Per our contract, I've met with the members from the leadership from the Minooka Education Association, and there weren't any concerns there. And we just have it up for first reading. So as you take a look at that, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me.
Very good. Thank you. The next we have hourly minimum wage.
Yes, this is for compliance with the new state mandates for adjusting the minimum wage requirements. This affects a small portion of our population, basically just our student workers in the summers that we pay $10 an hour. So we're asking to increase those in the next coming years to have compliance with the state minimum wage act.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna have to revisit this again, but thank you for that.
Sure.
Any questions for Mr. Troy on the minimum wage schedule? Okay, extended summer food service program contract.
Obviously, being in our remote schedule, it doesn't allow us to provide our regular food service. And so we're doing something different, providing food as packages to go out to the students as they leave. That's going to change the contractual requirements. So this contract that I have here reflects that new agreement with Quest to provide those packages, as well as we've have an agreement with the ISBE to reimburse us on a different basis. So we're actually getting reimbursed at a higher basis than we were in the past, and we'll be able to pay Quest out of those funds. So it's just a different arrangement.
Okay, I see. Any questions for Mr. Troy regarding the food service program contract? Okay, this next discussion topic was put on the agenda as a request of a board member regarding the proposed legislation that school resource officers would not be allowed to be in schools unless there was an immediate need for danger. And the discussion would be whether we want to go on record, voice our opinion, respond in a way that how we would support that particular legislation should have been passed. So I'm not sure, Kenny, I know you said you had contacted, why don't you give us a background of what you've done so far so we know where we need to go?
Yes, what I did was I called Representative David Welter just wanted to talk to him about the relationship that we have with Minooka Police Department and Shanahan Police Department, and the relationship that we have had over the years with our school resource officers, and what the spirit of the bill is much different than what we experience here, and just support our school resource officers in the school resource officer program. And I also, in my voicemail to him, also express that it is of my opinion that this is something that needs to be under local control, and this needs to be our local boards of education who are elected by our community members need to make this decision. He did call back this afternoon. Someone from his office called back this afternoon when I was out of the office, and they expressed on behalf of Representative Welter to Mrs. Ward that this item was tabled, and he does not see it coming back up. Should it come back up, he would be voting no on it.
Do you think it would be in our best interest, Dr. Lee, to recap that conversation that you had left that voicemail with, put that in writing and put that on record to his office so that in case it does come back up, it's a reminder of where we stand with it? Because I totally agree with you 100%.
Well, a couple of options that I see for the board on this. One, we could draft a letter and you guys could send that to, I would suggest all of our local representatives, if that is the wish of the board, or you could pass a resolution in support of the school resource officer program, and I can send that to our local legislators as well.
Mike, can I interrupt? I'm the one that asked for this to be put on, and I would like, if the board is in agreement, to draft that letter and send that should something come up in the future, that we are on record as to how, feel, and our working relationship with SROs has been a good, positive thing, and we would like that to continue.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for that. Dr. Lee, explain what this resolution would be.
John, do you want to speak a little bit to a resolution that you would write?
Certainly, we can mention the bill, what we see what the bill would have impact on our operations. We can discuss exactly what Dr. Lee has stated, what has been our experience with the SROs in our buildings, and go on to affirm that if this legislation comes up in the future, we encourage them to continue to vote no on this type of legislation.
And that we no way or support that, if that's the wish of the wishes of the board, that we don't support that. It's basically the same. We're doing the same thing regardless, correct? Or am I missing something?
Yes, I think you can do that, send a letter to them. There's also another way to do it by when anything legislation like this comes up, you can go on the legislative site and voice your opinion on that site. You can file onto that site directly so that your voice is heard directly and all the legislators see that. They encourage all people who wish to comment on that legislation to comment on that site. And basically it's a list, and they weigh it and say, okay, 1,000 people don't like this. Let's not pass it. So there's an avenue for doing that as well.
Okay, so as a board, basically a straw straw poll vote here. Do we have anybody that is in support? Let me just put it that way. Anybody in support of removing the school resource officers from the premises should it happen? Does anybody support that legislation?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
Okay, so obviously, we feel very strongly about this, Mr. Troy. So I think that we should do, we can do individual registration, or is that done as a district where you go in and voice your opinion?
We certainly can do individual registrations, and I can send you instructions for doing that tomorrow.
Okay, I think we should do that, number one. And number two, I still think that we should draft a letter and send it to all of our state representatives so that they know exactly how we feel, that we will not support this.
And we do that as a unified board, correct, Mike, that letter?
It would come, I would work with John to draft that, Wendy. It would come from me on behalf of the entire board. That's why I just asked.
That's
if there
perfect.
was.
That's
Yeah.
fine. I just would like to, as a board, I understand that Dr. Lee has voiced his opinion and I appreciate that, but I would just like to send a further message, a little bit, backing from all of us. Thank you.
I agree with that.
All right, so Mr. Troy, I'll be getting a hold of you so we can I'll draft something up and we'll work through it to make sure that we're, all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed.
Certainly.
Are there any questions thus far? Okay, let's move on to our action items. Is there a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of policies of Press Plus Packet 106 and policies affected by CBAs?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the extension of the FFCRA days through March 31st, 2021?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes. Motion carries. And is there a motion to approve the set hourly wage for summer student workers who are 18 years of age or older, and for the 18-year-old youths that are work less than 650 hours per calendar year as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve to extend summer food service program as presented?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the response to a grievance filed under Board of Education Policy 2:260 as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen?
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
Mrs. Terechko, Mrs. Terechko,
Yes. Sorry.
thank you. They're okay, thank you. Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. And is there a motion to approve the tentative budget resolution as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Colleen, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Terechko,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. And is there a motion to adjourn the meeting to executive session for discussion on matters related to minutes, appointment, compensation, discipline, dismissal, employment, performance of specific employees of the district, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, and collective bargaining?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does anyone have any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Terechko,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back shortly to return to open session.
Mr. Brozovich, is there any reason that you can think that we would still need Mr. Passetti, Dr. Grzedich, or Mr. Edwards?
I don't, let's see here. I didn't look at the executive agenda that close, but I don't see, if you don't think we need them there, then I am fine with them
Okay.
going about their business. Go your evening. Drive safe, folks.
You guys
Thank
have a
you.
good evening.
All right. We'll see you guys all in executive. Dr. Lee, you adjourned that meeting without closing it out correctly.
Hey, Mike, I also invited Mrs. Solomon and to be here in the meeting, back in open session.
Sure. Is everybody back? We have, I see Jamie, I see Laura, I see Brian.
I don't see D.
There's Patty.
Who's that? Your screen looks different than mine.
There,
Oh, there she is.
I don't see Dustin. Dustin, are you back yet?
I don't see Wendy either.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, good.
Looks like we're missing Dustin.
You're not going to keep your mouth shut. You don't come down. What are you?
There's Dustin.
My bad.
Okay. Are we ready to begin, Dr. Lee?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the closed session minutes as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. Is there a motion to accept the following resignations as presented? Tracy Javier, bus driver, effective 1/18/2021.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Colleen, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Arliss? Oh, no, I'm
Yes.
sorry. That's okay. Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the leave of absence for Christine Kump from intermittent leave, reduced schedule under FMLA?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the employment of the following support staff members as presented pending proper paperwork and background check deemed favorable by the MCHS 111 administration? Jared Leash, Robert Kinney, Stephanie Ledesma, and Monica Ragusa.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please, Colleen.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mrs. Arliss,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Tereshko,
Yes.
Mr. Heath,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the following extracurricular appointments for the 2021 school year as presented, pending proper paperwork and background check deemed favorable by the MCH 111 administration? Grant Ooms, volleyball boys assistant coach.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please. Colleen?
Mrs. Zarlis,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarechko,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. And is there a motion to approve the 2-year administrative employment contract as presented, pending proper paperwork and background check deemed favorable by the MCHS 111 administration? For Jamie Solomon, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, effective 7/1/2021.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please. Colleen?
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarechko,
Yes.
Mrs. Zarlis,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, the motion carries.
Mr. Brozovich,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan has joined our meeting as well. I just wanted to welcome him, just like we did Mrs. Solomon.
Well, hello, Mr. Shanahan.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Thanks
Hi.
for having me. I just wanted to stop in and introduce myself to everybody. Very, very excited to be joining the team, and I wanted to thank everybody for this opportunity.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Let's see here. Is there a motion to approve the administrative employment contract as presented, pending proper paperwork and background check deemed favorable by the MCHS 111 administration? Matt Shanahan, Department Chair of Special Education, effective 7/1/2021.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please. Colleen?
Mrs. Zarlis,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarechko,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, the motion carries. Congratulations, Jamie and Matt. Is there a motion to approve the settlement of the district's property tax appeal with LIT Industrial as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Roll call vote, please. Colleen?
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
Mrs. Zarlis,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarechko,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Carries. Before we adjourn, I would just like to say thank you for your patience in moving through the Zoom meetings, and next meeting that we have scheduled will be in person. Can't wait to get that back on track, and hopefully we'll never have to do this again. So
True, true. And Mr. Brozovich, can I just take a second to say thank you very much? And I really appreciate this opportunity. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you. So thanks. I'm very excited.
good. Glad to hear that.
Good.
Thank you.
Welcome, Matt. Congratulations, Jamie and Matt.
Congratulations, both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So if there's no further questions, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Usually that's the fastest one.
Second.
Are there any questions?
Mm-mm.
Last roll call vote of the evening, Colleen, please.
Mrs. Sarechko,
Yes.
Mr. Heap,
Yes.
Mrs. Zarlis,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Cry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rudiger,
Yes.
and Mr. Brozovich.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.